Hi, welcome to episode 2 of the Innsmouth Gold video podcast. As promised last time, we're looking at 2 graphic novels today, and the first one we're going to be looking at is The King in Yellow. So the original King in Yellow is a collection of short stories by American writer Robert W. Chambers, first published in 1895. The book is named after a play with the same title, and the play occurs as a recurring motive throughout most of the stories. We know that Lovecraft read these stories in the 1920s and was very influenced by them, and with Lovecraft's increase of popularity, then of course Chambers has increased in popularity as well, to the extent that The King in Yellow, The Yellow Sign and Lost Carcosa have almost had their own mythos, sort of branched off of the Cthulhu mythos formed now. Most recently we've seen that in popular culture with their inclusion in the True Detective TV series, the first series. So in the graphic novel we have 4 stories: The Repairer of Reputations, The Mask, The Yellow Sign and In the Court of the Dragon. And the 4 stories revolve around people who have read the play, the title play, The King in Yellow, and slowly get drawn into this unsettling, vague, insane world. The stories have been adapted and illustrated by I.N.J. Colbard, who's done a lot of Lovecraft work before. I think he's done At the Mountains of Madness, Charles Dexter Ward, The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, all good graphic novels worth checking out as well. The artwork here is quite minimalist in places. There's a lot of emphasis on eyes, a lot of close-up on eyes, and one thing you notice actually is with the eyes there's no pupils, which really adds to the unsettling atmosphere. Chambers is a subtle writer. There's no big monster reveal in the stories, so they're quite slow burn, the original stories, but it's all about the atmosphere. It's the atmosphere that really grabs you, and I think in this adaptation Ian Colbard has captured that atmosphere perfectly. I think you'll get more from the graphic novel if you've read the original stories, which are still available in all sorts of editions, I'm sure. If you haven't read the original stories, then you really should, because they're some of the oldest and finest works of weird fiction available. So that's The King in Yellow, published by Self-Made Hero. That's retailing at £14.99 at the moment, and is available on Amazon and I'm sure several other places on the internet. Our second graphic novel is an adaptation of 4 stories by M.R. James, Ghost Stories of an Antiquary, or is it Antiquary? Either way, it's a great collection of 4 classic M.R. James stories. M.R. James, of course, was a contemporary of Lovecraft and is known as the father of the English ghost story. If you're around the same age as me, you will have grown up in the 70s with the Christmas ghost stories, the TV adaptations of many of James's best works. It's nice to see this tradition has now been revived and is continuing, with Mark Gatiss now doing adaptations, hopefully every year, of M.R. James ghost stories at Christmas as well. Lovecraft said that M.R. James was gifted with an almost diabolic power of calling horror by gentle steps from the midst of prosaic daily life. And his ghosts were a far cry from the more traditional Gothic hauntings of his day. The beasties in M.R. James stories are usually more tactile than seen. Now that makes for very unsettling reading, but of course that presents a challenge for someone doing a graphic novel. But Leah Moore and John Reppion have done an excellent job of adapting M.R. James to this medium. I might be wrong, but I don't remember seeing other graphic adaptations of James' stories. I've certainly not seen any collection such as this. So I think they're to be congratulated on taking the plunge into this new territory for the graphic novel. So the 4 stories adapted are Cannon Albrick's Scrapbook, Lost Hearts, The Mezzo Tint and The Ash Tree. Each story is illustrated by a different artist, and that works really well because it brings a different slant, a different feel, a different look to each story as well. My own favourite, both out of this collection and from James' stories in general, is The Ash Tree. The artist Alistair Wood really captures the feel and tone of the times and the horror, without giving away any spoilers of what happens in the ash tree. He captures it perfectly. This is volume 1, and I checked on Amazon just the other day. It looks like you can pre-order volume 2 already, which is good news. If you're a fan of M.R. James, if you're a fan of ghost stories, if you like good artwork, then this is highly recommended. If you're a fan of Jamesian ghost stories, you might like to check out my first published book of short stories too, Remnants. Half Lovecraftian, half Jamesian, all set in the East Anglia Fens. And we have a special discount going on at the moment for people who view this video cast. The discount code will be popping up in your screen just about now. So that's it for this episode. We're off on a short break, but we're going to return very soon, and we'll be looking at some Robert E. Howard material. Until then, watch out for the yellow sign.